And we are live.
Hi to all. This is Hacks Chat. Welcome to Hack Shack Studios. I'm your host, Art T. Bear, and we will be talking for the next hour or so about comics. I'm a 30-year, well, more like 30 some odd years, comic book veteran. I've written, penciled, and mostly inked comic books for Marvel, DC, Image, and probably a bunch of others. So, without further ado, here is Taylor Grasso.
Hi, everyone. I'll be reading your chat today, so any questions you'd like to ask this 30-year plus veteran, please type in the chat and I'll ask on your behalf.
Yes, the plus. That's good. A plus is good. A minus is not good, but a plus is always good. So, yeah, I tried to, well, I did go on the comics gate chat that was just a few minutes ago, and I got in just in time to end the show. So I'm glad I could be there and close the show out for you guys. So if there was anybody tuning in, thanks for tuning in. And I don't know if you guys have heard the news last night. These are uh, Mike Miller's words, not mine. We outed Billy, or I should say Jerry Tucci and James Hundle to Comicsgate. So welcome aboard. This is truly building. It's pretty amazing how far this thing has gone, and it's such a short period of time. So I appreciate all the feedback that you guys have been giving and all the attention and support. So Taylor, what are you working on today?
I am working on Adventures of Super Sons, page 15. What are you working on today, Art?
I am working on Adventures of Super Sons issue 3, page 19.
Ooh.
So I am moving on. We are closing the gap to finishing issue 3 and putting it to bed. So hoping to get this bad boy done by the end of the week. As long as we have pages from Carlo, the great Carlo. Um, but yeah, the first issue's out. So if you guys want to check it out, feel free. It's a good book. It's cool. So we should get into the heart of the matter. And I was thinking the other day about Marvel and why they hate inkers, and they do hate inkers, by the way. So um, they've done a lot in their power to diminish what the artists in this business have contributed. And just to back up a little bit, just to give you an insight of what an inker does, an inker takes a pencil line from the penciler, and the penciler's basic responsibilities are storytelling, layout, and character, um, those things. And then it used to be that the inker came in and finished up the pencil. So they used to be a lot looser than they are now. But since the Image days, pencilers have kind of tried to get more control, and so they pencil a lot tighter than they used to. So inkers, like when I broke in, were more finishers. They knew how to take a loose layout and finish it up, just because there was never really any time for pencilers to do too much of the like nitpicky detailed work. So inkers did that. So I grew up in that era, but a lot of new inkers, they're working with very, very tight pencils, and so a lot of them don't have those skills, but they're equally as good in interpreting the pencil line, because now there's an interpretation factor from the pencils to the inks. So there's dynamics that the inks bring, clarity and readability to the image, to the page. And I I'm asked this a lot of times at conventions and stuff, is like, are you afraid of digital? Do you feel that comics are kind of acing out inkers, and those type of questions? And I I always answer with no. I don't think the industry is doing that. I think Marvel is doing that, and I think the only reason that Marvel is doing that is because they don't want to pay people um, money, and so if they can diminish what somebody contributes to the project, then they can treat them poorly. They can treat them with less respect, and I feel that Marvel is doing that with their A, B, C, D, whatever rates, and so they'll knock you down no matter where you're at in the industry. So if you have 30 years and you've developed a certain page rate and a certain way that the industry pays you back for your talents, your time, your knowledge, Marvel decided they're not going to do that. They're just going to pay you based on whatever book you're working on. So case in point, if you were working on a B level book, you would get a B level rate. If you were working on a C level book, you'd get a C level rate. And the rating systems are all based on sales. So what the book is projected at selling, or that the book does sell. And it doesn't take in consideration somebody's time invested in the industry, or their knowledge, or even their fan base. So I can't even charge Marvel based on that I bring a certain level um, and name recognition to a project that I work on. So if I was working on a C-level book, I would just get the C-level rate, even though I'm an A-list inker in general. So they can get A-list talent and pay them far less by putting them on a C-level book or whatever it is that they put them on. And so that's mainly what I'm talking about. And it's happening, it seems, more with inkers than like pencilers and writers. And so I think that it's Marvel's way of just trying to save money, because their sales aren't that good. And instead of increasing their sales by expanding the marketplace, they're basically just, exploiting the talent that they have. That's why I haven't worked for Marvel. There's other reasons, but that's why I haven't worked for Marvel in probably 10, 12 years, because they just treat inkers so poorly. So, what do you think about that, Taylor? We can elaborate.
Well, there's a couple questions in the chat, but I'm going to hold them because they're specific to different methods of inking and
Okay.
stuff, and I don't want to derail you. I was going to ask, is this something that Marvel has always done, in your opinion, or is this something that has been kind of growing since, like, is there a time you can pinpoint where this started becoming more prevalent, or is this always kind of their policy?
I think when I left, and it wasn't because I wanted to leave, it was because Marvel forced me to leave. Like I said, 10, 12, whatever years ago it was, when I was doing Ultimate Spider-Man and Ultimate X-Men. Um, I think then it was kind of gearing up that way. Blue lines started coming into at least an idea that Marvel could use blue lines. Um, and colorists were kind of coming into their own. And so there was kind of a challenge there, like, who's more important on the book, an inker or a colorist? And I say it's like they're both equally as important. But in the past, mostly comics came down to writing, pencil, and inking, and coloring was considered it was considered back end. It wasn't considered talent. And it was mainly because they were doing guides, and a lot of the color work was just all done with the printing. So they've kind of there's another person in the mix. So I think that Marvel, in lieu of paying, an inker a good wage and a colorist a good wage, I think they just split the difference, or decided that they would just split the difference. So they would take from the inker and then give to the colorist. And that's usually how it goes. I was working on Exiles, or I was supposed to ink Exiles, and Marvel forced Salvador LaRocca to make a decision to use me as an inker or to use Liquid as a colorist. And the funny thing is, Liquid and Hack Shack Studios, we shared an office space, so we, were friends. So Marvel put, Salvador in an awkward position where he had to decide, and so he decided that he would just do high contrast pencils, and it wouldn't be inked. And I think it just personally, I don't have a problem with pencilers wanting to express themselves in certain ways. If they don't want to use an inker, things like that, sometimes I think it can be artfully done. But I believe that Marvel was doing it just to save money, and I don't think that on that particular book that it worked. I thought that Salvador just wasn't the right guy to do that, because he was penciling the same way that you would ink something, and I just don't think that it looks as well, or as dynamic if it's not really inked. If you want to do some kind of like gray or side of the pencil stuff, then I think it works better, as a way to express yourself as just a pencil, just pencils and then color. But when you're penciling in a way that an inker would ink it, I think I don't think it translates well. So to answer your question, yeah, Marvel did treat, in the day when I was working with Jim Lee and Wills, and we were doing all the X-Men stuff, uh, it was definitely, you were treated like talent. You were treated very well. We got paid very well, and we just got respect, because it was still the time where an inker could actually dictate a style to a book. Like they companies would hire people like myself to come in and basically stylize a penciler or a book. So we would just kind of be a style designer, or I would be anyway. I can't speak for everybody, but I was kind of used that way. So I could actually bring an aesthetic to a project, um, that maybe the penciler wasn't intending on, or it was something that editorially they wanted it to look like. So yeah, I used to be treated a lot better. And then recently, I think it was Chris Baccello wanted me to come back and do like some kind of X or Avengers project with him, and I'd be inking over his pencils. And they just diminished my page rate down to nothing. And it was less than when I left the 10 years or 12 years prior. And I just, like, what the hell? Like, most jobs, like, you get paid more as you get older, and the more, like, you're able to contribute. But according to Marvel, you get paid less. So
That seems pretty like unheard of for any other career besides this.
yeah, I don't quite understand it. I mean, if I was working for the city or something like that, you get annual raises and you get cost of living raises and things like that. Usually they don't take money from you. And in this case, they definitely are. And so I've also heard, and I'm not going to name names, but it's big names that you would know, that they have taken a, like, say, B-list book and brought it up to an A-list sales, and Marvel doesn't honor the agreement. So Marvel doesn't pay them now for bringing it to an A-list. They still charge, still pay them for the C or B rate that they started in at. And I just think that's criminal as well. So
Do you think the reason that they can do something like that is because they're working with freelancers? Like, if do you think that there would be more, I guess, like artist rights if that wasn't the case? Like, would they be held to a different standard?
possibly, if they were more employees, yeah, I think that they would have to. There's laws and stuff that help people that are working for companies. It helps to instill rights and certain ways of treatment from a company or a corporation. And working as a freelancer, you just don't operate under the same kind of structure. So there's no insurance, there's no taxes taken, there's none of those things. So it basically is just, you get your page rate and that's it. So most of the time, you're not even contracted for an entire series. It's just like a month to month kind of verbal agreement that you have with the company. So if they decide to let you go for whatever reason, they don't even really need to come up with a reason. Um, then you're gone.
So basically, they're kind of abusing the freelancer by doing this because they don't really have any kind of obligations. Like you said, if a book goes up in sales and they don't pay that person, they're just doing it because they can.
Yeah, and then I think they're just calling freelancers bluff. Like, well, like, kind of, what are you going to do about it? I remember having a conversation, and he was questioning Marvel's accounting, and I said, well, what are you going to do? And he said, well, I could hire a lawyer and I could audit their books. He said, but I probably would never work at Marvel again. So it's kind of this weird scare tactic that, it forces you into, I guess, being scared and living in fear and not trying to upset, you know, your overlords too much, so you can keep working. And most of us comic book artists are really, really, really humble people. They're really humble. They're really good people, and they're just trying. They love comics and they've loved them since they were kids, and they just kind of want to fulfill a dream. And these companies, I think they realize that, and they'll exploit that because they just go, well, you're working on Spider-Man. You should just be happy that we're giving you the opportunity to work on Spider-Man. And I, I'm just recalling a conversation that I had with Joe Quesada about Marvel trying to kind of just diminish inkers' contribution to these books. And I remember it was a lunch, and it was with Michael Bendis and Joe, and I was there as well. And Hack Shack Studios was trying to do color work, and so we had portfolio. I had a portfolio of some of the work that we had done, just trying to branch out, just trying to become kind of an all-encompassing studio where, like Hack Shack, if you don't know, we're primarily an ink studio, but we develop shows for Hollywood and we do other things. But at the time, we were mostly just doing ink work, and so we had put this portfolio together. Some of the guys, they could color really well, and I was art directing, the coloring. And so I remember at that lunch showing Joe, excuse me, Hack Shack Studios, coloring. And so he looks at it, he goes, very good. He said, so you see the writing on the wall? And I'm like, what do you mean? He goes, seems like you're running scared here. You worried about your job as an inker. And that was like the first time I had ever even thought about it. He pointed it out that I thought that was insightful on his part, that's how he was thinking. I never thought of that. I wasn't doing it for that reason. But then he said that, and then I just realized that that's what they're doing. They are trying to diminish what inkers do and trying to save money by doing so. And I just think, I mean, Taylor and I talk about stuff like this, and like I said, these questions come up every once in a while when I do shows and things, and they talk about digital inking, or they talk about the future of inking and things like that. And I always say that I I don't think inking will ever go away. If you still look at all the top guys in the business, they all still define themselves by ink. So I think it isn't going away, but I think it is being diminished and it's being sold as like a dinosaur kind of thing. Like, oh, inking, oh, that's so, oh, you you ink by hand, you do all that stuff. But I have a quite a different take, and maybe it's because I am invested. But I think inking is one of the very things that defines comic books as an art form unto itself, because it's really the only place that inking even exists in art in general, especially to this extent. They used to hand ink animation cells and stuff like that, but that's not inking like what we do. It's still different, but even that is gone. So there really is only what I and so it only really exists in this industry. So I would argue that it's one of the very things that defines a comic book, like comic book art as comic book art. So that's me getting up on my high horse, and that's what I tell people. I say, inking is one of the very things that defines comic books as comic books, because you don't find that anywhere else. And when you see a big, New York ad agency emulate comic books, um, those images are always inked, because that's how this stuff is done. That's the art form. The art form is inking. And I'm going to use some expletives. Like, I'll be damned if I'm going to let anybody diminish my contribution to this industry, and to try to diminish what inkers in general bring to the show. It's BS, and they're doing it. The only reason they're doing it is to save money. It's the only reason Marvel's doing this. And as far as DC still really does respect inkers. DC still pays them as fairly as they can, because this industry, the books just aren't selling as well. But they're not putting all the inkers in fear. They're not doing the same kind of tactics that Marvel had. And so I applaud DC for still um, trying to treat the inker can within the budgets that they have to work with, which is pretty much not a whole lot. So I do believe that inking will forever be part of this industry. It will always be a way that we define this art form. Like I said, because it's the only place that you can even see this kind of work done. So,
Yeah.
there.
No, I think that's very true. And just to prove your point, that there are games like there's games like the Telltale games like Wolf Among Us and the Walking Dead game, and they try to make it look like a comic book by making the characters look like they're inked, and that's what defines them as looking like comic book characters. I do think it's kind of a core part of the aesthetic language and style of comic books, and it always will be.
Yeah, and even when they did the Ultimate Spider-Man game, uh, they hired Bendis and I to do the turnarounds for the game, and so I was really pleased that they wanted to try to emulate an ink line. So I was the inspiration for the ink line in the video game, and I'm very proud of that fact, that I could be part of that. So yeah, I believe that I don't know what we can do about it, but I do believe that it is a mainstay of this industry. I know things change, but I do believe if artists just start painting the comic books, the storytelling, the panel stuff will still be there, the word balloons will still be there, but then it's more of an illustrated, like, storybook. I don't believe that. I think it becomes something different. I don't think it's like a comic book anymore. It's just like an illustrated novel, kind of thing. Because illustration, those techniques do exist in illustration. Photoshop or hand painting. Blue line stuff, blue line color. Or just full hand painted color. That it exists in illustration, but that doesn't. I don't feel that totally defines the art form. I do believe that the inks are what does that, um, because there's a lot of illustration that's done in Photoshop, that exists that could look almost identical, but as soon as you put an ink line on something, it doesn't look like that anymore. It can't. It's totally its own thing.
Yes, superhero comics, I think, especially fall into that. I think when you see superhero comics that don't have that inked line, it does feel different. Um, I don't know what the solution would be. Like you said, I don't. Is there any advice that you would give somebody that's thinking about getting into inking to try and stand their ground and make their way in this industry that's basically trying to demote them to production?
Well, I would say the main thing that you could do, and it's going to benefit you in the long run as well, because if you want a long career like I have had, um, you don't want this to happen, is don't ever undercut somebody for a job. Don't ever do a job um, for like the main companies. If it's for a friend or it's an independent, or if you have more involved with like the ownership of, there's a lot of things, that you can, reasons that you can, not charge as much. But if you're going in like the big two, um, don't undercut people as far as your page rate, because when you undercut, then you send out a message to these companies that they can get talent for less. And the reason you don't want to do that, because I mean, you'll get the job, you'll probably get it over somebody that has a higher page rate, but at some point you will become that guy. You will be that guy that somebody's doing it to. Somebody that's, undercutting you now and diminishing your contribution to the industry. And I think if we would have unionized, or at least had taken some precautions before the internet boom, I think we could have stabilized and created a way of kind of existing in a better way, where we would have like rules and regulations for the companies to work within. But I think with the internet now, they can hire anybody from any region in the world, and basically you're competing not just against people that have the same issues as you do, as far as cost of living, stuff like that. You're competing against somebody that has a different cost of living. Like, it might take them less money to get by. So they can undercut you very easily and still have the same existence as you in their countries. And so that's another thing that I think is a fundamental problem. And even those people in other countries shouldn't do it. They should still be paid whatever the top going rates are for, wherever they are within the industry. And then not to feel bad necessarily for the companies, because I think the companies then would have to try to expand their marketplace to sell more books so that they could afford the talent. But as long as we just keep undercutting each other, and as long as the companies are willing to demean us or to play down our contributions as inkers, or even as comic book like pencilers and stuff like that, they're doing it. A lot of these companies are doing it to everybody across the board. But mainly inkers is what I've heard the most at Marvel. So
So solidarity, basically. And I
yeah.
think I'm sure I'm sure you're right. I'm sure this is something that I know at least colorists probably have to deal with, and I'm sure I know the foreign thing is something that pencilers probably have to deal with as well. Mark C has a question. He says, Art, do you think Marvel post bankruptcy getting rid of the veterans threw out the baby with the bathwater, costing the company experience?
Um, it's possible, but I stayed there when the bankruptcy, and that's what else kind of upsets me about Marvel, is that Marvel made every freelancer that wanted to stay at Marvel sign a release, and the release was that Marvel didn't have to pay you. Like, they would do the best they could, but if they went belly up, then they could just stiff you on whatever they owed you. So I worked many years under that contractual agreement, um, with the fear that they may or may not pay me. And so they ended up kind of doing okay. They pulled themselves out. They got a Spider-Man movie going, and a lot of that stuff started happening. So they worked their way out of the bankruptcy. Um, but I think I don't. It might have been the beginning of the end, but I didn't see it at that point. They were still paying me a decent wage, but what came after it, I guess it could have been related because they just started treating. But this was years and years later. They started treating me poorly, and I think one of the reasons is that I wasn't I wasn't down with the blue lines at first. Like I fought it to the bitter end, and I never did do blue lines at Marvel, um, because I just thought that it it messed the system up too much, and it put too many things in question, and it didn't benefit anybody that I knew. Like it didn't benefit the inker. It didn't really benefit the penciler. Maybe schedule wise, it benefited the penciler, but schedule wise, it never benefited me because I was always a guy that got things done. I never needed any more time or anything like that. So it didn't benefit me. So I think that maybe Marvel became more money grubbing or more tighter with the money because of the bankruptcy. I'm not really sure, to be honest. I just know that the problem I had with Marvel stemmed much later, but that could have been an offshoot of the bankruptcy, which goes with what I was originally trying to say, that it was kind of crappy how Marvel ended up treating me, especially when I worked probably 5 years under the worst possible contract that you could ever have. That basically stated that they didn't have to pay me you know, if they didn't want to, basically.
Yeah, I think that's pretty deplorable. Like I'm surprised that they could even get away with doing something like that. But it seems like kind of par for the course as far as the company goes. Pixel makes a good point. He says, at some point, it becomes completely impossible to make money without sacrificing the quality of the product to work faster. And I think that's the problem they're running into now.
Yeah, I think that's a good observation. But when I broke into this business, it was always like the guys that were doing well in the business were guys that could work fast. But the difference now versus the difference then is, like I was saying, where there was more of a camaraderie between a penciler and an inker, where the penciler would kind of pencil loosely and put the bare bones down, and then an inker could come in and finish it up. So you could actually move product along faster. And now, like, these pencilers are really they're really tightly penciling this stuff to kind of hold on to the style, and that's good. I think that they want their style to be dictated by them, by their own hand, versus an inker or something like that. um to each his own. But yeah, I think then it becomes harder to move faster because you have people working really tight. They're working, it's really labor intensive, where it wasn't as much before, because I think everybody was in agreement that the only way we were going to be able to raise our families and stuff is if we kind of moved fast. So everybody that worked on comics, 20, 25 years ago, 30 years ago, was kind of all in the same camp. Like, we got to get in and we got to get out. The most important part is getting the book done, within the time that we have to do it. Also, like in the day, there were always 3 issues in the can, and if there weren't, there was a fill-in that was scheduled, but a fill-in done by a team that was completely different than the team that was working on the book. So the team working on the book could get ahead. They don't do that stuff anymore. Nothing against DC because I think it's probably standard practice, but um, they released issue 1 of Super Sons, and we're not even done with issue 3 yet. So I think these things become problematic down the line because it becomes a schedule that cannot be kept by anybody that's doing really good quality these days. Like I said, it's people are working. There's a lot more work. These are a lot more labor intensive pages than they were when I broke in 30 years ago. Um, there's a lot more detail. So I just think that it's par for the course. And I guess if the industry wants this kind of detail or this level of detail, they should also be willing to pay for it or pay a lot more for it.
Yeah, I think, not to speak for the chat, but I think we can all agree that comics are kind of they're a collaborative art form. So it's kind of, I don't know, I, I feel like this whole like control issue of pencilers doing it tighter and stuff like you said, it does kind of, I don't know, there's a lot of inkers, I guess, like yourself included, that got their identity from interpreting pencils and bringing something to it. And Pixel Trader asks, do you think ego is playing into the issue with tighter work now? People fighting, because basically people are fighting for little scraps of attention to get an identity in the industry.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think there's some people that realize it's a collaborative effort, and I do work with pencilers every once in a while that actually want me to bring myself or my personality to the work, and there are pencilers that just really want me to cover the line. So I think there are both, but I think most pencilers now kind of want you to work in a certain way and to have it look a certain way. So that's why they pencil it that way. There still is interpretive factor that plays into it, but maybe not as much, as if they were really loosely drawn.
There's also, I think a lot of people are want to know where original art factors in this. And Mark says, art, I think the pencils go tighter so the penciler can sell their original pages for top rates. What do you think of that?
Um, Maybe I don't really know the original pencil market that well. I do know that there are like hardcore collectors that don't like the blue line aspects of the page, and I guess they like the idea that I guess the pencils just totally disappear and you can never see them again if you ink over them, and that somehow makes the value more important. But I personally don't believe that. I think whether I ink over a penciled, like a graphite penciled page or a blue line printed page, the amount of work I'm putting into it is exactly the same. And the printed page is the end goal anyway. So all the readers will ever know is what I show them. They'll never see the pencils. And so I just think if you're a collector and you're a true collector and you like both talents, or you like the title or whatever it is, you could you can get your pencils and you can get your inks. I would love that. Like I used to collect animation cells when comics were good in the old days in the 90s, and I would collect the pencils and the inked version, the final version, because I would and I do have some cleanup versions, but I'd like the animator's line before the cleanups, so then you can see all that kinetic energy and all that stuff that was put into it. But then you get the finished version, which is what you saw as the movie. So the thing that you fell in love with is that final image that was up on the screen. And I believe like ink comics are the same way, where really the original is the inked version. The original is not the penciled version. I'll argue that with anybody. I firmly believe that. So I do think that the inks should always retain a higher value than even the pencils. It all depends on, the creator, of course, but as a general rule, I think the inks should always be more value, because that is what was printed. That is what everybody knows. So that's what's got the fan recognition, is that piece. But like I said, as a bonus, buy both. Get both. How cool would that be?
Yeah, I mean, it only really expands the market, really, when you think about it.
Yeah, if I was collecting, I had the money to collect, I would be all over that.
Philip Steele says inks are finishes.
That's true. I think they called finishes kind of like if there was the pencilers were more like breakdowns, I guess. I think.
Um,
Oh, go ahead.
oh, I was just gonna ask, do you think so the key solution here, if there is any, is communication, not just to summarize for people surviving, um, communication, not undercutting, and basically doing good work, it sounds like.
Yeah, and I don't think I know Marvel isn't going to change at all. If you look at all the good inkers in the business, the really really good ones, they all work at DC Comics right now because DC still respects um, the contribution of the inker. And like I said, you look at all your top pencilers, they either ink themselves or they have an inker. So I think it's a bunch of propaganda that's being perpetuated for for a way to mistreat a talent, to diminish or to make it seem like inking's going away, like, oh, somehow, you know, digital inks. But even digital inks are inks. It's still a black line. So the aesthetic is still the same. So I'm not even against digital ink. Like if you want to digitally ink, fine, more power to you. As long as the end result is it looks amazing, why do I care? I don't. But at the same time, I don't have to respect you as a tradesperson. I don't have to go, your talent is amazing because I have used those tools. There is a stabilizer in that pin when you use it, and it will allow you to kind of, when you're working digitally, to nail it 9 times out of 10. And with a nib, there's so many variables, or with a brush, there's so many variables that you cannot lock down. And that's also the reason I like it, is because there's an unpredictability to it. I always look at inking as a performance versus like penciling or writing. Inking, you're in the moment. Whatever you put down, it it's what it's what defines it as what it is. So whether you make a mistake or the line isn't as clean as you wanted it to be, or it maybe was a little messier or even a little more controlled, or whatever it is, that's the performance. So when you go to see a play or a rock and roll band or whatever it is, you know, that's the performance for that night. So if the singer's voice cracked in whatever song, or it was a little horsey, but in a cool way, that's what defined that night that you saw that band, or that musical or the play. If somebody fumbled their lines or whatever, that's what becomes that performance. And I think inking is also unique in comics because it's the only part of comics that is a performance. Because when I throw a line down, that's the line. You can white it out, you can redraw it digitally, or white it out, or like clean it up. But you'll find most professional inkers, you'll find very little whiteout as far as fixing mistakes and stuff like that, just because there's no time. You nail it the first time out. It's a performance, man. You're not messing around when you put that pin down onto the paper. There's no messing around. It's go time. When you're penciling is a process. Penciling is trying to find something. So you're drawing, redrawing, drawing, redrawing, and that's part of the process. Writing is writing, rewriting, the same thing. Coloring is, especially digital, they can hit alt delete, and they can kind of go back on whatever their work. So it's not a performance. It's something that can be done over again, or it's something that's like done in repetition to find where you need to be. Inking is the only thing. inking like what I do, which is on the board, not inking digitally, because you can still kind of alt delete you know your work that way. But yeah, I'm getting a little passionate about this, guys, because I really think that, I mean, it's such an amazing. I just love it when that ink line goes over the pencil, or when I see a nice ink line in a comic book. I'm like, wow, that's so cool. It's still, even all these years since I was a kid, it still brings out that wow factor to me. I still think it's so cool.
I think you have a great perspective on this because for those of you who don't know, and I'd be shocked if anybody in the chat didn't know, but you're a penciler and an inker, so you have experience with both methods. And I think one thing about digital inking, as you brought up, is the blue line inking expands the original art market, but I think if everybody did digital, it would make the original art market smaller because there really would only be pencils available, and with pencilers doing a lot of digital work, there might not even be those.
Good point. Original art market could just virtually go away. Um, I don't really think about that when I work. I just like the tangibility of, putting something physically down on a board, and I like the satisfaction of seeing it come together. I'm not totally against digital. I've been working more and more digitally on all the black and white stuff. I'm basically digitally re-inking and redrawing every one of the pages, and even some brand new pages, um, on the computer. And it's just a totally different beast. It's just something that's totally unique to itself. So I'm not even like one of those guys like, you do that and you're gonna destroy the industry. And I'm not a doom and gloom guy. I'm like, whatever works. Like I've seen some people that work digitally, and that it looks flawless. It looks amazing. And I've seen some people where it actually just stinks. It's just so bad. And vice versa. So I say if it works, it works. So I never say never. But having said that, I doubt if I ever full time digitally ink. I just don't see the point in it.
The last comic book artist commented, inking isn't going away. You need really solid blacks to make the colors pop appropriately in print. Do you agree with that?
Oh, I totally agree with that. Yeah, I mean, that's well said. I think to hold your own, especially like some of this, the color work is very saturated, and I don't think that they would be able to get away with as much saturation if there wasn't a really good solid foundation for them to put the colors over. And superhero comics specifically, because things are very primary colors, and they're very bright and saturated, and dynamic. And I think because of that, you need a very dynamic foundation for those to go over.
Sherman says that I want to know if you agree or disagree with this. With the way pages are split between pencilers and inkers, inks can be somewhat unfair. It's kind of hard for an inker to sell the popular pages from a comic. Do you agree with that or disagree?
Well, if you're working with a really fair-minded penciler, I think the last time I worked with somebody like that was Aaron Lepresti, and we were doing Detective Comics together, and we did a Catwoman one shot and something else. What was it, Taylor? Was that big crossover? Was it? It wasn't called Trinity, was it? What was that?
Uh, I don't remember.
Futures End? Was it called Futures End? What was that big
Oh,
cross?
Future's End was the big crossover. That's
Yeah,
right. That was a good one. You guys
yeah.
should check that out. There's some art did
So,
some great work on that.
oh, and you helped. And so, yeah, we divvied up the pages, but we were very fair. Like, you get evens, start with this, and I'll take the odds. And then the next issue, we reverse it. So, you know, we all get evens, odds. And then if there was a specific page that he liked, um, we would kind of make trades, But as long as you're working with somebody that's very fair minded and diplomatic, I think you could do it. And actually, that's the most fun I ever had, splitting pages with somebody. I thought, he he got what he wanted, I got what I wanted, and there was compromise, and and we split them up very applicable. But I think um, the thing with blue lines is we don't even have to deal with that because I have every. That's another thing. That's cool. It's kind of cool. I have every page from that issue in my possession to sell. So every Super Sun page that we've worked on um, is up in the shop for sale. So I don't have to get into that as much as we used to, just because of blue lines, and it's the only plus that I've seen so far with blue lines.
Yeah, and I think it benefits the colors too, because then I mean not the colors, the penciler, because they have all those pages as well that to do with as they please. Unless, they work digital, then
I
that's
think
on
there's
them.
there's certain pencilers, and I would love to name names, but and if he's listening, he knows who he is. Um, some pencilers get a little irate in the fact that all the original artwork goes to the inker, and they think somehow that they're entitled to some of the inked pages. And I say, I say no. I say absolutely not, because unless you're willing to split your pencils with me, then you're not getting any of my inks. So if this is truly about an equitable split, then I should get half your pencils and you should get half my inks, or you get 2/3 of my inks and I get 2/3 of your pencil, or whatever the split would be. Otherwise, you keep your pencils and I keep my inks. I can't help it if you know the more popular version of the page is the inks. I didn't create the system.
Yeah, I don't. We won't speak his name, but I think they have no right to that. I think that's just an unreasonable
It
request.
was Voldemort.
Shh, we don't want him to know.
We don't want to speak his name.
Zach says it sounds like socialism.
Uh, Maybe. I don't know. I don't know. I mean, I always just think, like, I have these solutions, I have these ideas of how maybe the world could be better or to work better, and then I just keep thinking, I didn't create the game. Like, if you think about life as, well, there is a game called life. So let's just say you bought that game of life and you read the directions. You have to work within the confines of the rules, and the the thing is, I bought the game, but I don't get to make the rules. So I always look at life as, I try just to go, like Mongo only pawn in game of life. I just try to do the best I can within the system that was created, because I don't really have a lot of power to change it. Um, Although, having said that, I do think it's cool to be able to talk to people like yourself, like-minded people, and maybe if there's a younger generation coming up, that maybe I impart some kind of wisdom to them, that they'll be able to maybe go into this industry and make it a better one, maybe a more fair one, that you know pays people maybe a little bit better, or that we can expand this market somehow. I really do like the Comicsgate guys, because their emphasis is always on expanding the market, like making it better, trying to find new avenues of reaching and engaging the comic book, you know, viewers, readers, and I think that is it's pretty incredible. It's pretty unique as well.
Yeah, can you compare this to like anything really that you've dealt with before in the industry?
Um,
The
no,
Comicsgate
I think I said
experience?
that last night on Comicsgate. As I've been part of, I've been part of Image. I was there at the very beginning. I was there in early, even like Cliffhanger, which was a what do they call those? Not icon of Image, but they were like an imprint of Image. And the Ultimates. I inked Kubert on Ultimate X-Men, and I inked Bagley on Ultimate Spider-Man. So I inked both of the Ultimate books when they launched. So I was part of that. Um, the whole Superman thing, up to the death of the wedding, all that stuff. um, the new 52, the newest DC venture, and I know I'm missing a lot of others, but I've always kind of been in a place where things were happening, things that were going to push the industry into that next direction. And I feel like this Comicsgate um, group of guys and their mindset and their willingness to work with each other and promote each other, and it's very generous. I've never seen anything like this, and the numbers that they're throwing up and the fan response is absolutely, it's it's blowing me away in the sense, like I think I said this before, but I'll probably say it a million times before it's all done, is that it allows people like me, and then I can actually make opportunity or help Taylor along as well, that we can actually pursue like some create your own dreams and some things that I've been wanting to do for a lifetime in this industry that I've never been allowed to do, or I've never been able to do just because the industry didn't support it. I don't mean that in a negative, like, oh, the industry was out to get me or anything like that. It's just that there wasn't this type of platform that was available that we could actually take our creator owned properties and bring them right to the fan, right to the person that might want to buy them or might want to enjoy them. And I find it absolutely refreshing. And like I said, I'm actually just dreaming, and my brain is going into places that I haven't allowed it to go in 20 years, 25 years since Image in black and white, since I did that book in 94. So this has been a long time coming for me, and I'm just glad that I can actually even start thinking in these lines about doing create your own stuff and bringing stuff that I truly believe in, that's from my heart and from Taylor's to you guys, for you to enjoy, hopefully enjoy.
Yeah, this is a big deal, you guys, and we're very grateful for you. Um, Sapper says a lot of decisions seem to be made by people who don't understand or love the medium. Art, how much corporate structure of non-artists and slash writers are involved in the comic side of the big two?
It's a really good question. I I think that comics are more micromanaged than ever before. In the day, and I know I'm saying that a lot. I'm an older guy, but a lot of the, like, if it was Superman or if it was a Fantastic Four or whatever the franchise that you were working on or the title that you were working on, um, an editor kind of they did call the shots for the tone of the book. They were involved in the hiring of the talent. Personally, it wasn't mandated on high. They actually talent scout. They would find people, they would talk to them, they would hire them for their books and stuff like that. So every editor at Marvel or DC would kind of be their own recruiter and their own visionary. Like, they could go, this is the vision I have for Superman. I mean, the last really visionary editor I've ever worked for was Mike Carlin on Superman. That guy had a definite vision. He united the team. We were in constant contact with each other, and there was a friendly competition, but it was never destructive. Like, we would get the weekly mailers because he would put together like what everybody would do every week. Keep in mind there was no internet, so he would make Xeroxes of what everybody turned in that week, and then he would send it to all the individuals that were working on the books. And did I turn that off? It's making noise. I got it. Sorry, the air conditioner was making some noise there. Um, and and he hired people. He was one of the guys that were instrumental in basically bringing a lot of Marvel people over to DC Comics, because there wasn't a lot of crossover in those days. So like John Byrne, on Man of Steel, and Jerry Ordway, and Roger Stern. Gosh, I'm trying to, even George Perez. Um, was doing some of the Superman titles. Those were all, Marv Wolfman. Those were all Marvel guys. The only two guys that weren't Marvel guys, I mean, I started at Marvel, but I didn't work there for very long. I mostly worked at DC in the early days. Was Dan Jurgens and myself. We were the only like real DC guys that were working on those Superman books, and so editors got to work with the talent that they sought out. They got to set the tones for the books. I mean, they had to work within confines because DC didn't want they wouldn't want certain things to be done with Superman or whatever, but you know they were visionaries. They were guys that had a vision for their books, and they carried it out, right or wrong. But now what I'm seeing is that there's a small group of people at these companies, and they kind of mandate on high um, who can work or who should work on these books and what the tone of the book should be and things like that. It's not really an individual that's making the decisions as much as it used to be. And I think that's also why you're seeing a lot of homogenized stuff, because if you have individuals kind of set free to do their own thing, you're going to have originality. But if you have like two or three people mandating policies or mandating a tone for the entire franchise, then there's going to be a certain amount of homogenization that comes out of that, because it's just those two guys or those three guys that are making the decisions, versus like a group of creative people, and an editor filtering those ideas to make a comic book. And so I kind of think that's one of the fundamental differences.
So you feel that the editors kind of place has sort of changed. Do you think that's due to just like corporate mandates up on high that they have less of that interaction, or
Yeah, I think that I don't have any real proof of it, but I think that it's primarily a lot of the decision making is taken out of the individual editor's hands, and it's filtered through a brain trust at these companies. You're seeing it with film. You're seeing it with a lot of different stuff, and sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't work. Like the Harry Potter franchise is all filtered through. Oh gosh, what is her name? J.K. Rowling's,
yeah.
and so she has like two people I think she works with that help execute things, but it's those core three, and so they she created the franchise, so then she gets to monitor it and to control it. And so far, those three have done an amazing job doing so. Marvel has Kevin Feige and his group, and so for the most part, they've done a pretty amazing job keeping those things together. But then there's other brain trust that I'm not going to mention because I don't want to be negative, or too negative, is that they just can't get anything going. They have no vision. They don't have any real power to execute it. Either that, or they're too scared to make any real decisions because they don't want to be fired. Um, there's a lot of stuff that's going on. I think there's a lot of fear in the industry. It's not just it's not just the obvious, like, you know, I guess extreme left coming in and kind of um, scaring people like myself to actually be able to voice an opinion or to have a thought. But I think they're also just creatively stifling and controlling a lot of what you see happening.
Yeah, it's a tense environment for sure, whether it's social or corporate, I think.
It's definitely, all I know is I can do things, or well, I can do things that would pay me a lot more money. I have a lot of friends that do advertising in LA. There's a lot of advertising. I don't live in LA, but I'm close enough. And there's storyboards, and there's not illustration, but there's advertising art. And advertising art is a lot. It's not as difficult as this, as far as time consuming, and as far as the demands for what you do. but you get paid. Oh, on top of that, you get paid a lot more money because there's a lot more money in advertising. So they have a lot more money to distribute to the creative people. And so I could do that. I could make a lot more money and be a lot better, off financially than I am now. But damn it, stupid me. I love comics. I love doing this. I can't see myself doing anything else. I think advertising would just suck my soul. I would just I would just not want to live. But I'd have a bunch of money, you know, but I just wouldn't be as happy. So I do comics by choice. I do comics because I love it. I want to be here. I like the lifestyle. I like the medium. Um, yeah.
Yeah, I think it's definitely true that no one's really in the comic book industry that doesn't love comics. Like, at least none that I bet. I don't think anybody gets in this as like because they want a major money making operation or anything like we've talked about before.
Yeah. There, when I got into business, there wasn't a whole lot of money in it. Like I said, there was if you made good money, you did a lot of work. You were like there was John Byrne that could do 2 3 books a month. There was I actually talked to Ron Lim about this at San Diego Comic Con this year, that he was one of the guys that we all looked up to because he could do multiple books a month. And so guys like that were worshipped in the industry because they got stuff done. They made more money than other people, but it wasn't like they were paid higher. They just did more work, and so that was what everybody aspired um, to kind of be more functional and get more work done.
Well respected.
Yeah, and then later the Image and the Marvel stuff and the speculators came, and there was finally some good money to be made. But I don't understand for the life of me why this industry isn't doing better than it is. I think there are people that want the product that really, would support the product. I just don't think that the powers that be are getting it into the people's hands as well as they could. When I was a kid, comics were everywhere, and now they're so rare to see them anywhere that, why would they sell if they're only in a certain store? And the thing is too, like these stores in Corona, I don't even think there's a comic shop in Corona. There's one in Norco. It's kind of on the border of Corona here, but it's a trading card, like a sports card slash comic book. So it's a small little place, and they sell both. So there's not a lot of back issues. There's not a lot of comic books there. They really only sell the current books that come out every month. So that's really the only place that people can buy these books, and how do you expect to grow the market when there's one place that I know of, and I'm a comic book person, that you can buy these things?
Yeah, I mean, not enough people really talk about that aspect, that accessibility part when it comes to selling books, and there's no other product that really makes the same excuses that comics do about these things.
Yeah.
Like, it seems incredibly obvious, but I think there's the one in Norco, like you said, and then if you go further towards my house, there's two that are super spread apart. And out of all those stores, I think there's only one that sells back issues. Like, a lot of the stores don't even have a big selection of those anymore.
You should tell them your address so they can hang out. You guys can go shopping together.
That's a great idea.
Oh, you know what I thought of? Gosh, since we're talking, I'm kind of going back and reflecting in my career. Do we have time? We have time for like some fun, right, Taylor? I mean, there's a little bit more time.
Let's do a little bit. Why not?
Okay. Um, I just had a thought that in the 30 plus years that I've done this, I think I've worked on every major franchise character at both Marvel and DC, except, let me think,
Like 4 of them,
maybe. I think
maybe.
two, I'm thinking of two. I don't want to say now. Oh, maybe we could do it as a, maybe if somebody could guess.
But wait, okay.
Okay,
Here's what
go.
we'll do.
Okay. Hit me.
If you guys can guess, there's two. I think we agree that there's probably 2 titles, like 2 from Marvel, 2 from DC, right? Of all the titles, if you guys can
Well, that's what we
guess.
talked about like a while back, right? That conversation that where I was mentioning this to you. Is that what you're kind of referencing?
Yes.
Excellent.
If you guys can guess what those titles are we going to give them a prize? Are they going to get a Marvel no prize?
They get a Marvel no prize. No, 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 no. We'll give them something. We're not Marvel. We're actually making money here. No, no, we're not. But we won't be cheap. So yeah, you know what? I'm looking at a stack of those black and white prints that my wife found. So we'll give those away to whoever. I gotta figure out how to word this. Can guess the 2 DC titles that are iconic that I've never worked on but want to. Is that a good way to explain that, Taylor? Does that make sense?
Let's say A-list titles.
Yeah, A-list titles. So like um these aren't like B-list, like it wouldn't be like Blue Beetle or something like that. They would be like A-list, like Superman or Batman or like stuff like that I haven't worked on at DC. Let's do DC first.
Okay, DC titles that Art hasn't worked on.
So just start like and the first one that well, should we do 2? That'd be hard. So somebody would actually have to get 2, or maybe we'll give each one of them a print.
Okay,
so we'll keep going until they find the 2. But for one person to get 2, that would be pretty. It'd take a long time, wouldn't it?
Yeah, I mean the chat is guessing right now, but yes, you guys now they're asking now, or if they
Okay,
have time.
well, if they're doing it now, then Taylor, you're gonna have to start reading these names off fast because these things might start whipping by. It'll be first come, first serve.
Okay, Jiminy Cricket guessed Wonder Woman.
Oh shit! No way, Jiminy! That right off the bat. Okay, so there's one. I'm glad I did 2, and so yeah, go ahead. So Jiminy gets a print.
So Jiminy guessed Wonder Woman. That's one of them.
Shit, right off the bat.
And Sapper guesses Green Lantern.
Okay, I did a Green Lantern story with Dan Jurgens some time ago, and I did a Green Lantern story with, of all people, Steve Ditko.
Ooh.
A while back. Yeah. So I have done Green Lantern title.
That's a big one.
Yeah.
He also guesses the Flash.
Oh, I got a history with that guy. I did a bunch of covers for that book too that I penciled and inked.
They're pretty cool too.
Okay, we need more.
Well, Title guessed Green Arrow, but I would argue, is Green Arrow an A-list character?
He's not, but it's a moot point because I have worked on Green Arrow.
There's 30 years behind this guy, you guys. You might have to do some research.
No, don't encourage me to go to the internet. That's cheating.
Don't go to the internet. Hawkman, someone guesses.
Oh my gosh, I did the new 52 Hawkman with Kyle Higgins and Joe Bennett.
That was some great work.
Yeah, I love that book.
It's a good looking book. I know, even if you guys aren't Hawkman fans, you should check that out. They killed it on that book.
There's some reasonably priced Hawkman pages on the Art by P. Bear website, and just check them out just to see how amazing they look. They came out so good, and they're reasonably priced.
And how should we have the winners contact you through there as well?
Yeah, Jiminy can just through that website. You can contact me through the Art by T. Bear. You'll post a link, right, Taylor?
Yeah, I'll post the link. Just contact through the contact form.
Yeah, just remind me that um, the contest or whatever.
Um,
Ooh, it's a contest. I officially
it
said it.
is. Zach guessed Batman.
Um, I've done multiple Batmans.
Yeah, the art has done a lot of Batman books, actually. Um, let's see. Pixel Trader guessed Shazam. Is Shazam a A-list character?
Uh, is Shazam? Does he even have his own title? Like,
You know what? I don't know.
well, I haven't, and I don't think. I don't know. It depends. Like Captain Marvel, but that was like in the 30s. Like, I don't know if Shazam is still considered an A-list character. I'm gonna say, just for the sake of this, no.
Yeah, I don't think
So
there's been like a current run in a while.
yeah, I think he's probably still a B level.
Title guesses Teen Titans.
Oh my gosh, I got a Jeff Johns run with Teen Titans. So
I think you've done a few. You did the New 52 Teen Titans for a while too, right?
yeah, yeah. Little history there.
A lot of you guys are guessing Wonder Woman. That's already been claimed.
I can't believe what was it, Jiminy Cricket?
Yeah, Jiminy Cricket was on top of that.
Oh my gosh. But I am happy that this is now the second one is taking a little longer.
Um, Walden Wong says Power Girl, but I don't think Power Girl is an A-list character.
Oh, Walden. Walden, you want her to be an A-list character, don't you? She's a double A. No, those are small, right?
Oh, she's definitely
She's not.
not.
She's not a double A. Hey, Walden. Hey, if anybody out there is a Walden Wong fan, and even if you're not, he's got a YouTube station, and it's awesome. You should go check it out. He does tutorials and helps a lot of aspiring inkers out. So go check it out.
It's a cool channel.
So Walden, you get another guess.
Mark guessed Aquaman. Did we already
Yeah, we
guess
did.
Aquaman?
Was it the? It was that Throne. What was that storyline? That big Jeff Johns crossover storyline with the Justice League
That's right.
with Paul Piliater. Piliater. I don't know how to say his last name.
That was the one with the big flood, right? At the beginning.
Yeah, and all the Justice League characters come into it. I think it was crossed over with the Justice League as well.
Yeah, that was pretty cool.
I want to say Game of Thrones, but it wasn't. It was something Throne. The big crossover storyline.
Throne of Atlantis, I think.
Yes, that's what it was. Throne of Atlantis. Good call. You get a poster.
Walden keeps guessing, and I'm sorry, but this is not an A-list character. Black Lightning.
It's frightening. Is there even a Black Lightning title? Like, I don't know, but I'd say Black Lightning is not an A-lister.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, not yet. In my heart he is, but not really. I'm talking about like iconic,
A-list.
like what's that?
I just said A-list, you guys.
Yeah, like I think Batman, Superman, Wonder Woman are A-list. I think Green Lantern, Flash, Aquaman are still, even though I mean they're kind of more on the B-list side, but I think they're still just as iconic to me. So I'd say they're kind of high B. They're B plus.
Plastic Man is not an A-list. Although I think you did do a Plastic Man. You did some Plastic Man.
Yeah, we just did some of those terrific pages. Is it Team Terrific? All right, I'm going to narrow it down, guys. Oh, shit, if I do, you guys will guess it. No, we need to get some more guesses before I give you a hint.
Mark says, we are out of A-lists.
No! Some of you guys are kind of going in the right direction with, like, multiple character books.
I need to know who else is A-list.
I'm waiting. I'm waiting. I just so want to yell like Lex Luthor in that one Superman, wrong! I wouldn't be that mean to you guys, though.
Oh, Pixel Trader guessed Justice League.
Oh my gosh, Pixel Trader, yes. Yes. The League.
You got it.
Yes, cool. You guys are awesome. Yeah, so I'll sign up a couple prints, but let me know. Go to the Art by T Bear site, and there's a way you can connect with me. And so just remind me of this fun that we had today, and give me your address, and I'll sign some prints up and send them out to you. And I think maybe what I'll do after this is I'll videotape the print so you guys can see what you're gonna get. Um, just so you know, they
Con-
came out pretty good. They were cool prints.
Congrats, you two. It's a pretty cool prize.
Wow, this was fun. I felt like a game show host, kind of, you know. Come on down. We should need some game show host music for this.
Do 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 do.
Do-do-do. Oh, you know what? This is funny. Okay, speaking of game shows, Taylor and her family were on Family Feud.
Ugh, why must you?
So, okay, if they type in, is it Grosso family?
Yes, it is.
So okay, what do they have to type in for that to happen? Is it
Well, the thing is, I was actually on there twice. Once dressed up as a pirate humiliatingly for Halloween, and another for a returning game. So if you look up the Grasso family on Family Feud, you'll see me on there. I was like 18 years old though.
and nothing but good answers? Because that's the thing on that show.
Yeah, there
Good
was
answers,
some.
good answers, good answers.
They told.
Do you ever get tired of like doing that? Like, oh, good answer. Like your aunt gives you a really crappy one. You're just like, ah, yeah, good answer, aunt, whatever.
We actually did. Like they told us, like even if someone gives a horrible answer, say good answers. So like we did adhere to that, but my grandma had no filter, so like when my aunt would answer questions really dumbly, like one of them I think was like, "What's an animal that a witch would turn someone into?" And she's like, "A monster." And like you can see my grandma shrugging and being like, "What the what?" Like she didn't get the memo.
Did you say they had to cut the show a couple times because of like, was it your grandmother's response or?
Oh yeah, she had no filter, so they had to cut it from either her being like, "Oh damn it," like when she lost or something.
Those are the outtakes that you'd love to see.
Yeah, it was it was fun.
Guy, could you have access? Could you have asked for those? You think like an uncut version of the show?
Oh, that would be awesome. They would never. They didn't even. I'm not talking crap about Family Feud structure or anything, but they didn't give us much. They actually yelled at like my cousin in the audience because she wasn't clapping right.
Are you kidding?
No, the guy was sorry, Family Feud. The guy was kind of a jerk. Like she was clapping, and they told everybody, when you clap, lift your hands so everybody can see you clapping. And they stopped the show, and this guy was like, "Excuse me, like, are you clapping?" And she was like, "Yeah." She was like all shy, and he's like, "Well, we need to see your hands, please. Thank you."
Wow.
Yeah.
Who was the host? It was
It was the guy before this last one. I forget his name. He was the one that was in Seinfeld as Elaine's boss.
the white-haired guy, right?
Yeah, yeah, the
He
deep
always sounds
voice.
like he's putting you on the way he talks.
Exactly
Hey,
him.
man, what's going on? I'm a manly man.
Yeah, yes, exactly.
Hey, you're not clapping right. You over there.
It wasn't him though. It was like a guy.
Yeah, but in my mind, it will be that guy. That guy just stops the show, does that kill thing with the throat. Okay, stop, stop, stop. Okay, you. He walks over to
Singles are everybody shut up. You're not clapping
All right,
right.
you're not clapping right. There's a way to clap right, and there's a way to clap wrong. And guess what you're doing? You're doing it wrong.
John Hurley, that's right.
Did
Audience.
somebody give that to you?
Yeah, it was John Hurley. They did give us the
That's
first
awesome.
the first time we lost, the second time we won. So I got to lose in a pirate outfit, which is great. But they gave us some kind of Family Feud board game. Like, here you go, surprise.
That's funny. That is awesome, though. The Grasso family. They don't say
Yeah.
come on down though. You guys are already there, right? At the podium or whatever.
No, I think they do he does say come on down because he has like one person from the family come and hit the buzzer at some point in the game. It's
And
been a
and then
while.
you guys come running out
Yeah, we run all like, all cartoonishly down while the music plays.
and very excited.
Yeah.
You're so optimistic that you're just gonna kick that other family's ass.
And then when you hit the
God, I can't wait to destroy the McDonald family. There's
after,
gonna be blood in the streets.
after you spent like an hour in the green room hanging out with them and seeing how sweet they are.
Then you guys get all pumped up. Let's destroy them.
Yeah, they still ask my mom to be on game shows. Like they still send her email saying like I think you'd be good for this show because she's the one that kind of brought us into that.
She's the gregarious one.
I say you guys might see her at some point on another show. Who knows?
Come on
But I'll
down.
tell you what we didn't win. We didn't win a sweet black and white print. That would have made it all worth it.
Damn right.
Jiminy Cricket, you get a black and white print signed by 30-year veteran RT
Come
Bear.
on down. Wait a minute. You're not clapping right. You need to get out of the chat right now.
Do you want to give this a thumbs up or not? Because we don't need you here if not.
Yeah. Okay, guys. Thank you so much for hanging with us. This was a blast. We'll probably do something like this again. I think it's a lot of fun. And I'm glad Jiminy won the print.
And Pixel Trader.
Yeah, both of you guys have been so supportive. So I thank you. And I think you guys have been like a major player, even Comics, like bringing me up and posting links and stuff. So I really, really appreciate it. And I'm going to ask everybody one more favor. Um, we want to come out with Black and White in October. The original release date was in October, so it just kind of feels right to do it in October. But our time is short, so we really only have this month and the month of September. So if you could, if there's anybody you know that has like that likes this kind of entertainment, that's Comicsgate, related, or even if they're not, we'll bring some new people to the table. Um, let's do it, and if you can turn them on to the channel, that would be amazing, because like I said, we have a short period of time to do this, and I think this is the best way we can get the word out is through YouTube and hanging with the other guys in their chat rooms and things like that. So I appreciate the support that you've given so far, and I hate to ask, but if we could give a little bit more and see if we can get some more subs in here, some more people to what is it, Taylor? I always want to say ring the bell, but it's hit the bell.
Oh yes, it please hit the bell for notifications so you do know when we are going live. And it'll this interaction in the chat is very important to us. But like Art said, we do need to get the word out. So any help you can provide is greatly appreciated. So hit that bell for notifications, and make sure you like and subscribe.
Yeah, thanks guys. Have a good day, and we'll see you tomorrow.